Early this season, rumors said DeMar DeRozan was unhappy in San Antonio. They're gonna miss the playoffs for the first time in forever, so I'd say they're unhappy with him. Trade rumors started and the Magic or the Pistons came up, but there's only one place he should go back to.
I'm going back to
Toronto. Yeah, no, they should probably work on that song. But guess what? Some Raptors fans don't want him back. DeMar DeRozan back with the Toronto Raptors? Pass. That site says his lack of three-point shooting and defense would hurt a team that's evolved since he left. I love DeMar, but this makes zero sense. Toronto is better off without him, in all honesty. Okay, we get it. But there is one big thing that Raptors fans are missing here. And in this video, we will look at trades that actually make sense for DeMar DeRozan going back to the Six and why it should absolutely happen. Hey, it's Casey, host of the AM Hoops YouTube channel. Hit subscribe and notification bells because we are still coming out with 5 videos per week, always dropping at 5 Eastern, even without any games. Can't wait for those games to get back. Check out also the AM Hoops podcast, dropping a fresh episode every Friday morning. Never mind those fans, the Raptors should just let DeRozan come back if he wants to, as a thank you for winning them a ring. I mean, he didn't actually play, but he's the reason they got Kawhi. Okay, though, maybe that's not a good enough reason. But here's a question. Would DeRozan even want to go back to Canada? The Raptors front office told him days before he was traded, don't worry, you won't be traded. That's messed up. And he's not exactly happy with Raptors front office guy Masai Ujiri.
Have you had any conversations with Masai since?
No.
Do you plan to?
No.
Is that relationship, is it over?
Done. No reason to have a relationship.
So forget it, right? I mean, he doesn't like the people who are on the team. Some fans don't want him back. No, actually, relationships that strong don't just go away. When a player and a city are that bonded to each other, that feeling is still in there somewhere. I mean, I was like crying at this Bleacher Report video about that relationship.
It's not an easy decision for the organization. We all love DeMar DeRozan.
Oh, God.
My whole mindset, it's always been Toronto since I've been here.
Oh, God. Seriously. He still loves the city and the fans of Toronto. After the negative emotions subside, he will see the truth. And the truth is, it's a business. Trading DeRozan was a really tough decision for the team, but it was the right thing to do. They want a chip. But this is the team that drafted him, a place he spent the first 9 years of his career. DeMar DeRozan said it himself, I am Toronto. I mean, he's still wearing a Raptors jersey in his Wikipedia page. What more do you want? So if they can make up, there is still the question of fit on the court. Now, that article I talked about did make some smart points about DeRozan's game. He doesn't shoot threes in a league that requires that from every position. He's one of the worst defenders in the league, and that is a must on this Raptors team. I mean, from Marc Gasol to Pascal Siakam to OG Anunoby, Toronto is now packed with elite defenders. But what Raptors fans are missing is this. He is not the same DeMar DeRozan. You're right, the Raptors have evolved since he left. At the same time, he has changed too. He went from a 4-time All-Star to kind of irrelevant. From good enough to trade for Kawhi freaking Leonard to a guy that no one really wants. Raptors fans are remembering this guy as the leader of their team. You've got a new leader, Pascal Siakam. That would not change if DeRozan came back home. What would change is your offense. For as good as the Raptors have been this year, their offense is average. I mean, seriously, here is every single team's offense ranked this year. The Raptors, just about in the middle there. Right above them, yeah, the San Antonio Spurs. And who's their best offensive player? You guessed it. As for DeMar's defense, well, the only teams that can actually afford a below-average defensive player are great defensive teams. The Clippers are able to make up for Lou Williams. The Brooklyn Nets are gonna have to hide Kyrie Irving. But actually, the craziest thing about all this is they've actually tackled this exact issue. Nick Nurse said this before he ever coached a game when they thought DeRozan was still going to be on the Raptors. He said, quote, instead of hiding DeMar DeRozan in a regular season game on a poor offensive player in December, maybe we're going to throw him on an all-star. Maybe it costs us a little bit, but we need to challenge him on that end of the floor. We need to hold him a little bit more accountable. we're gonna do that, and he's on board with that. So Nick Nurse actually planned for this exact scenario, and he is not the kind of coach who's gonna let DeRozan just sit back on defense. He will sit him on the bench if necessary. The Raptors have the number 2 defense in the league. With DeRozan back, their offense would jump too. Raptors fans who don't want him back are wrong from a basketball standpoint. But the other part, I will admit, is a bit tricky, and that is the financial part, or just his value. What is DeRozan's trade value at this point at 31 years old? Well, the fact is he is not the 4-time All-Star he was a few years ago. He is now absolutely overpaid. DeRozan can opt into 1 year and make about $28 million next season. And if he does that, DeRozan easily becomes tradable on a big expiring deal. Another option is to extend and trade him so the Spurs don't lose him for nothing, but how much is he worth in a trade? So one front office person on a Western Conference team said the Raptors would have to give up, quote, a first-round pick plus Serge Ibaka or Marc Gasol. Yeah, I think the Spurs would take that. Now, in a DeMar DeRozan trade with the Raptors, I think the Spurs would want back picks, OG Anunoby, or Terence Davis. Anything else would not be enough to get a deal done. Now, I know those same Raptors fans who don't want DeRozan back also think he's not worth that wish list. But here's the thing, DeRozan is not a good number 1 option anymore, I agree with that. But as a number 2 option offensively, he would be amazing on this team. Here's the numbers that prove it. This is the list of people who averaged 22 points, 5 boards, and 4 assists this year. James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Brandon Ingram, and DeMar DeRozan. People look at his lack of 3-point shooting and dismiss how legitimately great DeRozan still is offensively. So, trade number 1, DeMar DeRozan to the Raptors for Serge Ibaka and OG Anunoby. Serge would need to do a sign and trade here because he's off their books after this season. They do this because DeRozan wants that $28 million for 1 year, and the trade gets that done. Anunoby is exactly the kind of player the Spurs want. He's just 22 years old, talented on defense, and still growing as a player offensively. The Raptors do this because they could be selling high on Anunoby. Everyone looks at him as this all-defense type player now with an improving offense. Last year, though, he was inconsistent, and we still don't know what to expect in the playoffs. Be real with yourself, Raptors fans. I know you expect other players to take a Pascal Siakam type jump from year 2 to year 3 and so on, but no one does. If OG isn't as good as he looks, then the Raptors would win this trade. Trade number 2, DeMar DeRozan for a first-round pick plus Marc Gasol. Same deal with Gasol's contract, he'd have to do a sign and trade. But this trade is for Gasol and not Ibaka because the Spurs could use Gasol's defense. He's still one of the best rim protectors in the league, and this was the worst defensive season in Spurs history. Let's be honest about that first-round pick too. If the Raptors are as good as the regular season, that pick might as well be a second-rounder. Getting Marc Gasol back is actually valuable, and the Spurs would need both the pick and the Spaniard. And trade number 3, DeMar DeRozan to the Raptors for Terence Davis and Serge Ibaka. Now this is the trade that San Antonio goes for if the Raptors play hardball on Anunoby. Terence Davis is the classic underdog Raptors story. He is an undrafted player who is one of the best rookies in the league this year. He looks like at least an NBA starter, but he showed all-star flashes this year. He would play 2 guard next to DeJounte Murray in San Antonio, but he solved several Spurs issues. He shot 40% from deep, and he can drive to the basket. He's just 23 years old, so he fits the Spurs' young timeline. Again, this is the least appealing trade of the 3, but absolutely worth it if San Antonio wants to rebuild. Now, one really important thing to note in all this is DeRozan opting into that 1 year for $28 million. If he does that, it allows him and Kyle Lowry to hit free agency together, and that friendship is one of the deepest in the NBA, so it makes sense. The Raptors do have the salary cap to just sign DeMar and give up nothing, but they don't want to pay DeRozan that much, so it's not realistic. DeRozan would absolutely, though, agree to play in Toronto for this 1 year and a big payday, then become a free agent after next season. Look, I know a lot of Raptors fans haven't listened to any of this because they've got their mind made up. They do not want DeMar DeRozan back on the Raptors. But I think if his role is different and the finances are different, he would absolutely be a valuable piece. And one thing they can't deny is the reuniting of the Raptors and DeMar DeRozan would be special. Support AM Hoops and click subscribe. Don't miss a daily NBA video.